right. Good evening, everyone. I want to welcome all of you to our first program of 2021. So, welcome to the new year. Glad everybody made it through 2020, and we're going to get this year off to a good start. And so, I want to start by introducing myself. My name is Stan Chambers. I am the president of the Triangle Iotas. We are the Raleigh-Durham Chapel Hill alumni chapter of Iota Phi Theta Fraternity Incorporated. So officially, we are the Alpha Epsilon Omega alumni chapter, but we go by the Triangle Iotas. And so what we're doing tonight is this is a first in a series of conversations where we are helping the community understand how to interact with law enforcement, how to not only interact, but to also help to build a relationship with law enforcement. As all of you know, 2020 has been a very interesting year, and there have been multiple instances where interactions between law enforcement and the community have made national news. And so what we want to do here is to build sort of a baseline understanding of sort of best practices when interacting with law enforcement. And so we have two brothers tonight that are going to be a part of this conversation. Officer Jackson and Officer Tyler, they both work for different departments in North Carolina. And so they're going to spend this time walking through sort of things you should know in case you say an officer pulls you over, what you should do, what are your rights, what can you do, what can't you do, or if you're walking down the street, or if you're at an event, or just out and about, and an officer stops you, what are things you should know? Now, before we get started, I want to sort of lay some baseline rules, if you will. So I'd like to have this as a discussion. And so please ask questions in the comments, and if they're appropriate, we will get to them. I do want to note that we cannot get into specific cases. And so if you have a pending case, then this is not the forum to get answers. So you're best to consult your attorney. Also, we're not going to get into things you've seen on TV. We're not going to talk about sort of what happened at the Capitol yesterday. We're not going to get into that. We're not going to get into incidents that happened last year. This is purely an FYI conversation. So in case you interact with a law enforcement officer in an official capacity, you'll know what you can do, should do, and what you can't do, and things like that. So on that note, I would like to turn the forum over to these two gentlemen, if they can just briefly introduce themselves, and we can get this conversation going.
Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brother Dan. I'm with the Alpha Epsilon Omega chapter of Iota Phi Theta Fraternity Incorporated, as our dean said, with the Triangle Iotas. I am a law enforcement officer in the state of North Carolina. I'm glad we're doing this project. It's definitely to reach out to the community because, as law enforcement officers, we protect the
Glitch or you freeze.
So it looks like Officer Dan froze there. So while he gets back online, Officer Dell, if you can just introduce yourself.
I have worked with 3 different departments. I started in the jail. I worked there for 3 years. So I have a little experience about what goes on in the system while you're in the jail. I worked in the streets. Started off at, where is that? I started off with a previous department, I can mention, was Raleigh. Then I'm with my current department now in the Charlotte area. So I have a total of 7 to 8 years experience in law enforcement. Go ahead, Dan. Go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Sorry before I was cut off. I was briefly saying that I think this is a great project that we're doing. I have a total of 1 year in law enforcement for my experience level. I think this is definitely what the community needs to know. We serve you guys every day. You guys have a right to know what your rights are and the information that's going to be explained in this session.
This project came about. Oh,
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
This project came about between me and my LB regarding what we have seen in our years of experience. Me working in the jail, I've gotten a lot of questions from people that were incarcerated. Also working in the streets, we always get the question or statement of, I know my rights. And they're 9 out of 10 are completely wrong. And then it also gets you in trouble for not knowing what you should know.
Right. And so that leads into like a good first question. And so just for everyone listening to understand, so these two brothers, they're on patrol. So what that means is if you call 911 and you request an officer to come for whatever's going on, these two will show up. And so if you two can talk about when it comes to the people you come across and their understanding of their basic rights, if you can just talk about sort of the average citizen you come across and what's their level of knowledge regarding their rights when it comes to interacting with law enforcement.
It's very sad to say, but their understanding is very, very minimum to almost none, to my experience. You have a few that have family members that are officers or lawyers or know somewhat of the system, and those are the only people that actually know. But the average citizen that has no ties to anybody in law enforcement or in the system, their knowledge is pretty much none.
Yes. I would agree with my brother Dell. The people that I've came in contact with that do say that they know their rights, like I said, their understanding of it is really slim. A lot of people don't know the difference between voluntary encounters and consensual encounters and when you're being detained by a law enforcement officer. And that's definitely what we're going to go into within this next session after we finish talking about this. But a lot of people don't really know their full spectrum of their rights, that they're given.
So okay. So let's walk through some situations. So let's start with a common one, a traffic stop. So you're driving along the highway, and next thing you know, there's a police car behind you, and next thing you know, those lights are up, and you get pulled over. And so if you two can walk through if you're being pulled over in that situation, what are your rights? What should you do? What shouldn't you do in that situation?
Before I get to the rights, one thing I want to say is please pull over to the right side of the road, not the left side, because that also puts you and us in a dangerous situation if somebody comes behind us getting a car wreck. But when you get pulled over, we see the lights, you have the right to pull over into a safe area. But when you do that, you need to make sure that you acknowledge us. So put your hazard lights on. And if you're in a dangerous situation like a highway, or you're in the county or somewhere where it's not lit or a well-lighted area, you can pull over to a gas station, but make sure you put your hazard lights on. And if you feel like that is too long of a drive, or you can call dispatch, you can call 911, you can call anybody to let them notify them that you're being pulled over, and to verify if you don't see any lights or there's an undercover car, you can verify that it is a police officer pulling you over as well. Go ahead now. I see anybody say something.
The biggest thing is we just want to make sure that everybody's safe on a traffic stop. That's the number one priority as the officer and as the citizen that we're pulling over. Like you said, make sure that you acknowledge us. If you don't feel comfortable pulling over there, because you do have the right to pull over into a safe area, please just at least let us know. Definitely give us the warning that you do know that we are trying to pull you over. Because if you don't, the officer might think that you're trying to elude him, and we definitely don't want to go into that situation. Brother Dell?
Yeah. We can go in deep into this topic, but it's up to you how far you want to go, because this is one of the topics we can talk about later on in the series. How far do you want to go into this?
I think we can get pretty deep into it, because I feel like for most people, this is when they interact with an officer or a deputy or a trooper, typically during a traffic stop.
So as far as traffic stop, the main thing we look for is license, registration. If you give us those, That's mainly all we need from the beginning. But as far as being pulled over, the things that you will see officers pull you over for, the proactive ones that don't have anything to do late at night, or your tag lights, your headlights, your rear lights, make sure everything is up to date, or make sure everything is well lit, because those are things that we will pull you over for. What we expect and what I do when I pull somebody over, I tell them why I'm pulling them over as soon as I come to the car. I will say, hey, my name is Officer Jackson with such and such department. The reason I pulled you over is for this. So when an officer first pulls you over, give them that time to say why they pulled you over, or hear what they're going to say first before you just start talking, because that might help you out a lot. I know with me, as soon as I pull somebody over, they're already having a bad day. The first thing they do is, why you pull me over? And I'm about to tell you that. The way I was trained, and the way I'm pretty sure Brother Dan was trained, was before you get out the car, you should know whether you're going to get them a ticket or a warning ticket or let them go. And then once you do that, but sometimes your issue gets, or your opinion gets swayed a little bit depending on somebody's mannerism. If they're yelling, cussing at you, then more likely they're probably going to get a ticket. If they're quite cooperative, more likely going to get a warning, and depending on what it is, how severe the traffic violation is. Another thing is, for your safety, what I recommend is when an officer pulls you over, if you can just put both your hands on the steering wheel and then just do as the officer instructs you. Another issue that we have, that Brother Dan probably can do a little more talking about as well, as firearms. You're allowed to have a firearm in the car. If it's concealed or if it's open carry, you have your right to have a firearm. But when officers come into the car, if it is concealed, do not reach and get it quickly and try to put it on the dashboard. Leave it exactly where it's at. Don't touch it, don't move it, don't make eye contact with it. Just keep your hands on the steering wheel. As soon as the officer comes to the car, that is the only time where you should immediately say, I have a firearm in the car, and tell them exactly where it's at. You have any more to talk about that, Dan?
Yes. I have pulled people over that have open carry. I've had pulled people over that had concealed carry. Like you said, just go ahead, just keep your hands visible when we walk up to the car so that we can see them in plain sight. As you said, put them on the steering wheel or dashboard, or even outside the car, outside your driver's side window, so we know. As soon as we get up to the window, let us know, hey, officer, I have a firearm inside my vehicle. Okay, that lowers the the level of height and awareness right there. It lowers it a little bit. And the officer's going to be, okay, where's the weapon at? Okay. Once he's telling what a weapon is, don't go for it. Like you said, just keep your hands up and just let the officer know where it is. And then the officer will instruct you what to do from there. Okay. A lot of people, they get confused. They try to go for things, and we don't want anybody to get hurt. That's the last thing we want. So just try to keep your hands visible, keep them where the officer can see them, let them know that you have a weapon in the car. And that's technically, you have to let the officer know that you have a weapon in the car for the safety of you and him. So, yes.
And as far as that as well, I have had people who told me that they heard this same speech and they've heard it the same way we just gave it. There is another option you can do. If you don't feel comfortable with a firearm being in cars and police is with you, just because what a lot of stuff that's going on in today's era, you can ask the officer, can you step outside the vehicle into the back of your trunk to conduct a traffic stop? That is also something you can do.
So let me ask both of you this. Does the motorist have the right to pull out their cell phone and record the traffic stop?
Yes.
Yes.
Everybody's allowed to record. My department has a body camera. I'm pretty sure their department has a body camera.
Yes.
Just about everybody has one now. They're not required to have them. Just about everybody has one, just for their safety and ours.
And so also, does the motorist have the right to call someone, whoever, be it their friend, their significant other, their attorney, whatever, do they have the right to get on their phone and call someone in the middle of the traffic stop?
The best thing to do is, go ahead, Dan.
I'm going to say it's going to depend on the officer. It depends on the situation at the time. It's going to depend on where you're at. There's a lot of factors that go into that. You do have the right to go ahead and record an encounter with the law enforcement officer. That is your constitutional right. But to call a person, calling somebody, that's going to make the officer, depending on who the officer is, it makes some officers nervous because they don't want to add more people to the traffic stop, having more people come up and start to interfere and possibly obstruct the traffic stop, which we don't want. And so it's going to depend on the officer there. Some officers are okay with it. Some officers are not. I'm just going to go ahead and throw that out there. It's going to be dependent on where you're at in the situation that's going on at the time, the reason why you were pulled over, and the factors that are going into it.
And so, oh, go ahead.
When you do that, I want you to look at it in both perspectives. If you're in the car and you call somebody, because everything that's going on today, that person's probably going to drive, or they're following you already. They're going to try to come right behind you and pull in and get out the car. Now that's one officer right there, and you've already made them into a situation where it's more uncomfortable. So to de-escalate all that in general, you can call somebody, yes. Me personally, what I recommend is either call them, put on speakerphone, call them, leave them on Bluetooth in your car. Just call them, make sure your hands are free and your hands are still on the steering wheel. That way, there's no other variable for the officer to be a little bit more hyper.
And so, let me ask you guys, so does the motorist have the right to immediately get out their vehicle and approach you?
No.
So a lot of people do that, and it normally is not Americans. However, in different countries, that is accustomed to where the person that's getting pulled over will come out to your car, and the traffic stop will be handled there. However, in America, no. Because normally people get out the car, is either they're going to run, they're going to fight, and you don't want that to happen.
And it also presents a safety issue for the officer. That's why usually if you see on videos and other things, when people get out in the car, the officer says, "Hey, get back in the vehicle." And that's just to limit the safety capacity of myself and the other person. I don't want them to get hit by a car on the side of the road. I don't want them running across the road. I don't want someone else to see him getting out the car in traffic and swerve over into our lane and hit us. So that's why we try to tell people to stay in their vehicles as much as possible until the officer instructs you to step out.
And so, because traffic stops are pretty common,
Yes.
Let me ask both of you this. So, if you are to get pulled over by someone in law enforcement, what should you do? What is the best way to ensure that things don't escalate? And I want to break this down into two levels. So one level is your plates are straight, your license is straight, you have no warrants, you're either going to get a ticket or not, and then you're just going to go along your merry way. But the other situation is, let's say your license is suspended, or your plates are expired, or you have warrants. So if both of you can walk through, for the motorist, what is the best way to approach both, to, I guess, respond in both situations to ensure that the motorist doesn't get hurt and that the officer doesn't get hurt?
Well, I'll say this. Every situation is going to be different. And as I say, again, these are just suggestions that we're giving the public. But every situation is going to be different. And there's going to be a lot of factors that are going into these situations because things change at a rapid time. Every officer is different. That's what I'm going to definitely say. Every officer is different. Everybody's perception is different. Perception is reality. The officer might perceive something differently than someone else might. I'm going to say if you have everything that's correct, your driver's license is okay, your registration is okay, you have insurance on your vehicle, just like Brother Dale said, go ahead when the officer approaches, keep your hands visible where the officer can see them. The officer's probably going to say, "Hey, how you doing today?" You go ahead and give him the greeting, and he's going to tell you why he pulled you over, and you go along with the traffic stop. If he asks if you have your license in your pocket or somewhere else that's not easily visible, ask the officer, be like, "Officer, I do have my license in my pocket. Is it okay if I reach for it?" Let the officer know why you're reaching and ask him if it's okay. The officer will let you know if it's okay or not to reach, Just make sure that you're going off of his cues and not your own, because that can turn into a detrimental situation.
So I'm going to give you situations of where I've been pulled over. So when I'm in the car, or while I was either in the center console, my back pocket, or in my wife's pocketbook. So when I get pulled over, my hands are on the steering wheel. If my wallet's in my center console, I will go ahead and take it out. when I have my ID, at least my ID in my hand and put it on the steering wheel. So my ID is already ready for it. As soon as I ask for my ID, I can just give them right there with my right hand. Now, if my ID is in my back pocket or in my wife's pocketbook, my hands on the steering wheel, so an officer comes to the car, gives me the spiel. I say, yes, sir, my ID is in my back pocket or my ID is in my wife's purse. Can I get it? Once I say yes or no, and get it go from there. If you're, say if you're a female, your purse is in your trunk or in your back seat. Most officers will not ask you to turn around and get it. They'll just ask for your name and go from there. So that's how I get, if I get pulled over, that's how I respond every time. Hands on the steering wheel. If I can get my ID before the officer gets out the car, I will get that and put it on the steering wheel with me.
So I'm sure some people are wondering, you have your ID in your wife's purse?
Well, because sometimes I don't feel like carry my wallet, in my pocket, and I just go ahead and tell her to put it in her pocketbook so I don't have to hair carry it, me being lazy. But she's probably laughing because I'm telling the truth.
So random. Okay. So we do have some questions coming in. And for those tuning in, thank you for coming out. And please don't hesitate to ask your questions. And so this question is from April. And she asks, if you're at a traffic stop and the officer asks you to get in their vehicle while they check your license and tags, can you refuse?
So that's nothing that I have experienced. Mostly the officers are going to do that or hire patrol. And if you're wary if they are a legit officer or not, you can ask for the badge. You can ask for the name. You ask for the department they work for. And you can ask for the phone number. Call that department before you get in that person's car. I'll see if they're allowed to give you a call or have somebody. Or if they won't allow you to get the phone call to verify their credentials, you can ask for the supervisor. And the supervisor will come there. But just try to handle it more on a level-headed situation versus getting irate.
Now, to add on top of that question, so if you're not sure if an officer is legit or not, you can just call, like the officer gives you their name, their badge number, whatever the case may be, and can you call 911 and say, hey, I've been pulled over by officer so-and-so from so-and-so department. Is this officer legit? Can you do that?
Yes. I've had that happen to me before. I told somebody to call one time because they did not believe I was a police officer. So I told them to call, they verified, and then we went from there.
All right, great. And so we have another question from Paris. What efforts are being made within your department to not prioritize low-level stops, such as a tail light out, expired tags, etc., in an effort to mitigate racial disparities? The data supports the fact that racial inequities show up in every stop except for speeding. So let me step in and say that these guys are, yes, they're law enforcement officers, but they're not spokespeople for their respective departments. So it is a good question, but this is not the forum to address that issue. That's a bigger issue, which we will take a mental note of, because Paris brings up a good point. I will say, let's rephrase it a little bit. So, what are some general reasons that an officer might conduct a traffic stop outside of speeding? Speeding is the obvious one.
Well, so you have your number of houses that you have a lot of activity for, that people call noise complaints, or you have the houses that people call and say, oh, there's drugs here, or people call and say, oh, there are people already loitering. So you'll have officers or community officers who are out that area circulating, and then the time frames that they give us, we'll go from there and do investigation. Sometimes, let me see if I can answer that question. I can put that in there. Okay, as far as drug houses, let's look at it that way. The courts have ruled if you can find narcotics, like enough equipment to say, okay, this came from that person, or it's coming from that house, or you witness a drug buy, you can stop the car off of that because you first seen the drug buy, and you can call another officer, or you can actually go and stop that car for that purpose. but I can't really put too much into that. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
Does that answer the question?
Okay. So I guess in a general sense. So for example, an officer will pull you over for speeding. An officer will pull you over if your tail lights are out. An officer can pull you over if you're driving erratically, swerving in between lanes, going in and out of traffic at a high rate of speed. I've had instances, from personal experience where I'm at a traffic light and it just so happens a cop pulls up behind me, and this was a long time ago, and it turns out my plates were expired. So officer runs my plates. Oh, plates are expired. As soon as the light turns green, he lights me up. So, in a general sense, what are some other reasons why someone would be pulled over?
Well, okay. So as far as
As-
people driving in North Carolina, people cannot drive. This is just be honest. But the main thing is people will not use turn signals, which cause a lot of wrecks. So that is the most easy thing for somebody to pull over. You can put somebody go over go under 10 the speed limit. The speed limit is absolute, so you can't go over. You can go one over and get pulled over. However, that is very petty. A lot of officers look at that as petty. So me personally, mine is on the highways 10 over, on the streets 7 to 5. In the school area, really about 2. You go slow enough for actually to see if you can't run in the middle of the streets. So every cop has their own little standards they have in their head itself, but it's to basically give everybody else the benefit of the doubt. That makes sense. There's a lot of little small things you can get pulled over for. Like I said, tag light. 9 out of 10 people don't know what a tag light is. A tag light is basically when it's dark. If you cannot see your tag, it's 2 little lights on the, right above your tag. Both of them should be lit so you can see your tag. Also, in North Carolina, you cannot have your tag covered. So if you have like a little thing where you bought it from Nissan, Dodge, whatever, and North Carolina is partly covered, you can get pulled over for that. It's like a lot of small traffic stops.
And then also for us Greeks, you know how we love to have our Greek tags, and there are some newer ones where the name of the organization is Slim. But for example, like I have an older one, and the Iota Phi Theta covers North Carolina, so that opens me up to getting pulled over. But also, Lynette mentioned a few other examples: seatbelt violation, headlights out, stop sign violation, like you do a California stop.
California road.
With California roll, where you kind of slow your way through the intersection instead of coming to a complete stop. So an officer can pull you over for that.
Yeah, that one I agree is very tricky. But the best way to do it is literally all 4 tires come to a complete stop. Not just the back 2, or maybe 3 of them that you think of, but all 4 to come a complete stop.
Right. And so again, just want to welcome everyone to this conversation here. Please do not hesitate to ask your questions. No question is too little. No question is too dumb. This is why we're here, to answer these sort of questions, so that if you're out on the roads and you get pulled over for any reason, you'll know, or you'll have a better sense of what to do and what not to do. So we talked about traffic stops, and then Josiah also mentioned excessive lane change. I've seen a lot of that, especially on 40. But anyways, and traveling in the lane. What does that mean? I don't know what that means. So
Possibly traveling the left lane. The left lane's meant for passing and then getting back over to the right lane. But you see a lot of people that they pass somebody, they stay in the left lane instead of getting right back over.
that gets on my nerves.
Yes. They go slow in the left lane.
I can get on a rant about that, but we're going to move on. So we talked enough about traffic stops. So, okay. So let's change the scenario. So you are, and we'll combine these two. Say you're walking down the street. You're minding your own business, and an officer approaches you and says, hey, it could be for any reason. Like an officer can say, like, he or she can walk up to you and just say, let me see your ID. Or the officer may say, you fit the description of someone we're looking for. What is a person's rights in that kind of situation?
So
Well,
you have
those are
two
two
different types
situations.
of encounters. You have voluntary encounters, and you have reasonable detainments. Okay, voluntary encounters, they come off of the officer, is driving down the road, he sees you, he gets out, starts talking to you. Okay. With the voluntary encounter, if I don't inform you, hey, the reason I'm talking to you and saying that you don't match articulable facts of a crime that just happened or that was committed or criminal activities afoot, you have the right to walk away. And so if I'm just talking to you saying, hey, when I do voluntary encounters, I let people know automatically, hey, this is just a voluntary encounter. You're free to leave at any moment. And most people, they feel a lot more comfortable when I say that. They actually thank me for saying that because a lot of people, they get confused. So to limit the confusion and to limit, from anybody thinking that I'm violating their rights or their rights being violated, I let them know, hey, this is a voluntary encounter. It's being recorded and everything's being recorded, but you're free to leave at this moment. Now, if I'm coming up to detain somebody because they match the description of a robbery suspect that just occurred, or I think possible criminal activities afoot, meeting my articulable facts stating that you might be in possession of burglary tools or something that can be used in a crime, then I'll go ahead and let you know, hey, sir, you're being detained because you just matched the description of a robbery that just occurred, and goes from there.
So let me ask you this. So, because every officer is different, the way you operate, you explain things up front. This is what it is. This is what it isn't.
Yeah.
So, what about for someone when they come across an officer who isn't that clear? So, what can a person do in that situation?
I'm not trying to be sneaky about it. I just can't speak for that. I apologize.
Well,
I'm sorry.
I can because I have done that in a couple of times. Just because of I don't have enough to say, oh, you didn't commit that crime. I'm really just talking to you. I'm not really investigating crime. I'm just basically doing a canvas, just talking to people. But when I come to do that, it literally is like a voluntary encounter. I'm coming to talk to you as a person. I'm not coming to talk to you as an officer. Literally just having casual talk. And then at that point in time, if I'm asking you for your ID, 9 and 10, they're going to ask me why, and I'm explaining to them why. Now, if it's something like you said, like a murder or shoplifting or anything of that nature where I have enough, then I'm going to tell you why. But at that point in time, it's going to make sure that I'm not in a wide open space where you can just take off running. That makes no sense. At that one time, I'll either have you sit down on the curb or have you sit down somewhere where you can't just get up and run away. And I can explain to you then. But if I can't, then that's where I'm going to put you. At that point in time, I can detain you right now and put you either in handcuffs or put you somewhere where you can't get out. You know what I'm saying? Or run away.
So, okay, so KG, we're gonna get to your question in a moment. I see your question, just to recognize you there. So let me ask you this. So let's say a person comes across an officer and it's very vague. So can the person just flatly ask, hey, am I being detained? Or why you're stopping me? Am I being detained? And then what can that person do depending on the answer to those questions?
I mean, you got freedom of speech, so you can ask any question you want to at any time. So I'm talking to you like, hey, what are you doing? Am I being detained? Nope, you can take off running. Hey, am I being detained? If I can't answer that question, the officer has no reason to detain you. So they're not going to answer that question. They're probably going to keep talking around until they have enough to detain you. So at any point in time, you can't walk away.
So, okay.
But now,
Go ahead.
yeah. But now, say you ask the officer, "Are you being detained?" And the officer says, "Yes." You go ahead and stop. Don't take off running because now you just obstructed justice. You resisted, obstructed, and delayed the justice, and then they're going to arrest you for ROD and additional charges that follow on after that. I would like my line brother said, Brother Dell, I would ask if I'm being detained, and the officer's not telling you yes. I would possibly keep going away. I mean, there's no reason for a detainment to consent at that point. But if he does say, hey, you are detained, go ahead and stop and comply to the directives that the law enforcement officer is giving you. Because if you don't, it can lead to further problems that you do not want.
And here's the thing: is if you don't understand them telling you you're already detained and you start walking away, if you hear it stop, just stop.
Yes.
Not saying where they're gonna say please stop, and if you keep running, then you basically are running away.
Yes.
And the same thing like LB with Dan was saying.
Yes.
So in a situation like that, same question as in a traffic stop. Are you allowed to just take out your cell phone, start recording? Are you allowed to call someone, be it your significant other, attorney, this and the third? Like, can you do that if in that situation as well?
If you're being detained, no. If you're not, you have the right to call, do anything you want to. However, if you were to do that, just don't make any quick movements. If your phone's in your back pocket, say it's wintertime right now, it's about to snow tomorrow. You have a big giant jacket on. Don't just throw your hand in your pocket and pull out with a cell phone, because that's not good safety precautions for you or the officer. It makes it look real bad because you're pulling out a cell phone, but the officer might think you're pulling out a knife, you're pulling out a gun.
So let me ask both of you this. So let's say somebody's detained or somebody is stopped by an officer, be it traffic stop, be it walking down the street, whatever the case may be, and the officer says, and you go through the motions, you get permission to take out your phone, you start recording the interaction, and the officer says, let me get your phone, or let me delete the recording. Like, what are your rights in that? What is a person's rights in that when that happens? If
Well, it's a voluntary encounter, so they shouldn't ask for your phone. If they do ask you, give it to them. I mean, at that point in time, they're deleting evidence, or they're breaking your phone, they're damaging your property. You can actually sue for that or charge the officer for that.
All right. So we have some more questions here. So I don't know if you guys can answer this question, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. So KG asks, what is the best advice when pulled over by an officer who is profiling?
I'm not going to answer that. That's them.
Huh?
I'm going to say I'm not trying to be rude to Mr. KG. I see what he's saying, but I'm not going to answer that.
Yeah,
because if you feel like you're being profiled, you can ask for a supervisor. And you can explain to the supervisor why you feel profiled. That's what I would do. There's always somebody higher up you can actually talk with. You can do the traffic stop, get the officer's name, get his badge number if he has one. Everybody does not have a badge number. More likely just have a name or a unit number. You can get all that information. You can call up to the station, ask speak with a supervisor, and you can go from there. There's change you can speak with about that encounter.
And then also, I'm sure all departments have this. You can file a complaint with the department that you had the interaction with. And so that's another level of recourse. And so when you get into profiling, that has to be proven in a court of law. So that can get a little tricky during the middle of a traffic stop. But there is recourse for that. You can, again, ask for a supervisor. You can file a complaint through the department and go from there. So another question is, so this question, I'm gonna ask the question, but it doesn't fit within the context of this conversation. In your opinion, how do each of you hold your partner, if either of you have one, accountable to demonstrate good practice of law enforcement towards citizens, especially the minority communities and people of color? So I'm going to stop right there because that is a good question. That is a pretty big question, but is not a question for this forum. So again, this forum is to provide a sort of baseline, and these two brothers are not spokespeople for their departments. And so, but Josiah brings up a good question that I think we will consider hosting an event or a similar forum later this year to address that question, because that is a pretty big question. So Michael asks, consent to search. That's all he said. So
Okay. I think I might know who that is, and I think I kind of know what they're answering about. So a consent search is literally that. It's consent. You're consenting an officer to search. When an officer does that, you're supposed to be able to see what they're searching, and at any point in time, you can say stop. And at that point in time, officer's supposed to stop. However, if you give consent to search, like say if I pull Dan over and have him try to stop and give him his ticket, whatever, I ask him to search his car. He says yes. I pull him out, have him on my hood of my car, looking at his car, I'm searching his car. Underneath his seat, I see marijuana, but I'm keep searching the car. He's in his head, oh dang, I got marijuana in my car. Can you stop? At that point in time, I'm gonna stop, but I'm gonna come back and tell him that because he gave me consent to search the car, there is marijuana in your car, and I already found that now. So now there is a crime. So I'm not allowed to search your car at this point in time. Or say if it was female, same situation with a purse. At that point in time, I'm allowed to finish searching the purse because there is narcotics there.
So here's a follow-up. What if you ask for consent and the person says no?
Then you don't have, if you have no crime, you can't search without consent.
Yep.
All right.
Now there is one thing that I think a lot of people ask about and kind of get misconstrued. The odor of marijuana, when you get pulled over and traffic stop, the odor of marijuana itself allows us to search your vehicle. Me personally, I always ask, can I search your vehicle? I smell marijuana in your vehicle. How much you have? I'll have no more in my car. I'll search your vehicle. They'll be like, yes, because they want to prove their innocence. Okay. So at that point in time, I'll ask you for consent. I don't have to. It's just me being a reasonable officer and want to be more level-headed and talk with you and letting you understand why I'm searching your car and trying to get more consent versus just telling, oh, get out the car, I'm gonna search your car. It just builds that rapport with the citizens.
So another question has come up. What if the officer refuses to give his badge number? Now, I know you mentioned that there are some departments where an officer might not have a badge number, but let's say the officer does have it and refuses to give it. I guess what is the motorist's recourse in that type of situation?
Like I would say, every department is different with that, but I would say if the officer refuses to give it, you can go ahead and complain. I would definitely get up with the agency and say that, hey, the encounter with your officer, I felt that he did not treat me with respect, and he didn't give me his name or badge number, but you can give the time of day and the time of night, the time of day that it happened, the stop that happened, and where you were, and all that information is recorded in the system where you were stopped at. And so you can go ahead and go on from there. But it just makes it smoother, just to get that information. But if they don't give it to you, all the information is recorded.
So I'm thinking of it as ways if I was getting pulled over and I'm not an officer, I would try to get the name. Another thing I would pivot to, since I am an officer, I'll try to get the unit number. Those are the two things that really can identify an officer. They don't want your badge number. Say you Echo 138 and your last name is Jones. If you give that information enough, you can get that information, you can call that department, or you can call dispatch, and they should be able to give you that information. Or you should get a plane, say, call this 911. I would just put over by Jones, Echo 381, what he said his unit number was. He did not give me his badge number. Can I speak with an officer? Can I speak with a supervisor? The way my dispatch works currently, and the previous one did, they would go ahead and dispatch that call and give it to a supervisor immediately. And the supervisor will call you back once he either calls the officer to try to figure out what happened or why somebody is complaining in, or try to figure out what call he was just at or around that instance or situation.
So first, Paris, thank you for coming out. She has to leave. So thank you for coming out, Paris. Another question is, how extreme can a car search go? And by the way, everybody, please keep asking questions. Thank you for asking them. This conversation is for you guys, not for us. So please keep asking your questions. So how extreme can a car search go?
What do they mean by how extreme?
Is it consent or is it like search?
I don't know. So, Sai, if you can elaborate on your question, that would be greatly appreciated. And then another question from Miles is, what are my rights if an officer puts their hands on me? For example, could I walk away or pull my arm away?
Well, I think if an officer's putting his hands on you, using because you have different parameters of where you can use physical force and lethal force and non-lethal force. Using physical force at that point, is he trying? What's he saying, or what's he telling you to do? If an officer puts his hands on you, there should be a good reason why he's putting his hands on you. Is it to stop himself from getting hurt and stop you from getting hurt? Is it to stop you from hurting someone else or yourself? There's different parameters with that question, and I know it sounds like I didn't answer your question, but there's different parameters of why an officer will put his hands on you. You have
That's
to be,
the question.
there's different parameters of why the officer is putting his hands on you. But I feel that if he's putting his hands on you at a certain time, you're probably not free to walk away. I think hindsight's 20/20 on that part. I think that you should probably stop and let him effect this force if he's going to detain you or place you under arrest. I would ask, am I being arrested or am I being detained? Or why are you putting your hands on me? And then once he explains why he's doing it, go along with it and don't resist.
There's active and passive resisting.
So we've, let's say, because we've seen instances where whatever the lead up is, eventually an officer will grab somebody to detain them for whatever reason. And so if you could explain why resisting or fighting back is a bad idea.
So as soon as you're being detained, you're not free to leave. So if the officer's putting his hand on you from leaving, then at that point in time, you're trying to resist. At that point in time, you're going to be charged with already this delay obstruct. At that point in time, you kick an officer or hit an officer, then you're going to be charged with a felony assault on a government official. When they might just be detaining you because your name was put into this investigation because you were either seen stealing and you're going to get a ticket, or your name was put into stealing and they're doing more investigation on that part. So it can lead from a ticket to getting misdemeanor charge to getting a felony charge. And it's just simply, I mean, you just stay there, sat down, or just got handcuffs and got a ticket after that and left. So it can literally be from small to big when it shouldn't be that bad. Or when it's going to get that bad.
So Josiah did elaborate on his question regarding search. He said search as in places, belongings, and etc. And his original question was, how extreme can a search get?
So once again, I'm asking, is it a voluntary search? Is it a warrant search? Because I think I can answer that question in a lump sum. If it's a house and I have a warrant to search, we're searching every little thing because it's a warrant. We're looking for something. Well, let's say if it's a warrant and we're looking at computers, seize all the computers. We're going to go seize all the computers. If it's a warrant for marijuana, looking at every little thing. Warrant for like any kind of the car is looking through every little thing. If it's a car, I get consent to search a car. I'm going to search everything if I smell marijuana because you're looking for the marijuana. Marijuana is small. Any place that you think marijuana can fit or be in, then that's what you're going to search. Like I said, literally, a consent search, you can stop at any time. If I go into your house and having a conversation because it's a domestic, we're talking, I smell marijuana, or I see marijuana on the other table. Ask you, can I search the living room? Or can I search your house? I start searching, you tell me to stop. At that point in time, because marijuana is in plain view, I'm not going to keep searching because it's a house. I'm going to have everybody out and we get a search warrant at that point in time. But you always have the right to say stop and no when you're doing a consent search. You can allow it to be as small or as big as you want it to be on a consent search. But again, a consent search, you have the right to say no and stop.
Until they find something illegal. So if they find you in possession of narcotics, then your consent goes away and it's going to be fully searched at that time.
And that was the gist of, he added an additional comment saying voluntary for the part. So AG did ask a question. Again, I don't think it's appropriate for this forum, but in the sake of transparency, I'm going to ask anyway. He asked, in North Carolina, sorry, people keep commenting. Basically, what is the amount of arrestable marijuana in North Carolina? I don't know if you guys want to answer that or not.
Honestly, I'm not gonna answer it. Really, it's just the officer's discretion, because you can get locked up for a small amount, like literally, like just having marijuana. However, 9 out of 10 officers are going to give a ticket, but everybody has marijuana these days, so I'm not going to arrest every little person for marijuana. It's really depending on the officer's amount that they have in their head. Anything over 20 grams, I'm arrested for. Anything big, because 9 out of 10, you have a lot of people who don't sell marijuana, just have it and smoke it. You don't want those people. You want people that's actually selling it. So a lot of officers are going to think about that as well. But no, there's not a set amount.
Gotcha. Another question from Miles. In regards to my right to remain silent, if I'm detained but not arrested yet, can I still refuse to answer questions or talk to the officer?
I mean, if you're not detained, you can walk away.
Yeah, you can walk away. Yeah. But if you've been
but not, I guess, charged.
Yeah.
You don't have to answer any questions if you feel that like you're going to incriminate yourself. That's where you have the right to remain silent. If you feel that you're going to incriminate yourself, or if you didn't do anything wrong, if I didn't do anything wrong, I'm just going to let them know, hey, I didn't do anything wrong, and then tell them why I didn't do anything wrong. But now if he says, hey, you have the right to remain silent, you have the right to not talk. Like I said, it depends on a case by case basis. But if he's reading you your rights, you have the right to remain silent. Up to you. I mean, you don't have to say anything if you don't want to. But if I know I didn't do anything, I would definitely explain, hey, I didn't do anything.
Don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure, almost 90% accurate, 100% accurate, that if you're being detained, at that point in time, they're supposed to meet your Miranda rights because they're investigating. But now, if you're just talking to them casually, you're not detained, they don't have to read you your rights. But if you're detained, then yes. You don't have to be read your Miranda rights to be arrested. No. But if you're detaining you, questioning you, because you're in custody at that point in time, they have to read your Miranda rights after you're in custody.
So, all right. So we don't have any more questions. So let me ask both of you gentlemen. So in a general sense, be it a traffic stop, be it you're walking down the street and an officer stops you, or you're at an event, or an officer is in your home for whatever reason, other than being able to video record the encounter, and being able to call someone, unless you're in custody, what are some other things that people should know regarding their rights when it comes to interacting with law enforcement?
Requesting body cam footage, you can do that. It takes a while. It's a lot of hoops you got to jump through to do that. I don't know what all that is. I just know you can. Talking with the supervisors, talking with people higher up than that. A lot of people don't know that with city officers, they have to ask the sheriff department, can they police in the city? So if anybody in the city, like chief, whatever, cannot answer a question and do that, you can go to the next level, which is the deputy. Go by that. And the deputy has the counsel that he has to answer to. So everybody has to answer to somebody, in a sense. We said record. We said have eyewitness. Is always good. It's better if you do have eyewitness. If you can get a statement that day, have it go ahead and sign, notarize. That's even better if it goes to court. Like something goes to civil court, you already have it signed, notarized on that date. If you have video footage, I would go ahead and email it to yourself or save it some other way so it doesn't get corrupted. And it's also time stamped. So if you email something that happens today, when you pull it up in court, it's time stamped of when it was sent, when it was done, so it's not edited later on down the road. think that's about it.
I just want people to know that, reading with your constitutional rights, you have rights to a speedy trial. You have the right to a trial. Once you get arrested, that's why they take you before a magistrate. You have the right to record these encounters with the police department. And also tells you, hey, you're not allowed to record. That's false. You are allowed to record. I've been in scenes where I've had to tell people to back up, but I was like, hey, you can also record as well, but back up, please. When officers are arresting somebody, and we've always seen this on YouTube and Facebook and things, when officers are arresting people, the reason they tell people to get back is for a safety distance, because they don't want you to get hurt because this person's either flailing around the ground, or they don't want the officer to get hurt, because people walking up behind them and adding into the resistance of that other person. So that's why the officers tell people to get back, and to relax and stay back. You're allowed to record, but stay back. That's for a safety distance. That's why officers tell people to back up. I also want people to realize that, it's a hard topic to discuss, but there's also lines of liability with these things. Like I said, we don't want to not answer your guys' questions. It's just that we're limited to what we can and cannot say, for career reasons and, organizational reasons.
And as far as also about crime scene, by everybody being back, it's also common courtesy. If that was your family member who got into an accident or was murdered by somebody else or something that won't happen, would you want everybody recording your family member on the ground or seeing their hand underneath their towel or seeing blood stains? That also leaves trauma to their family members as well, seeing that on the news. So that's just another common courtesy. Just think of it that way as well. One question I did have to ask is, what can we do to recruit more minorities into this field? Because everybody always wants to say, well, if you haven't lived in my neighborhood, how are you going to police my neighborhood? Well, we can't even do that if we can't recruit minorities who live in neighborhoods like that, who are able to do the job and are suited for the job to apply. So what can we do to get more minorities to this field?
Was that a rhetorical question, or was that like a actual question?
I literally asked a question for everybody that's in the comments still or watching at home. Maybe you guys can send those a response. That would be great.
Gotcha. What's a good example of that? I remember a few years ago, the incident out in Houston when multiple officers were killed, and it was like a shooter. He was in like a parking deck or something like that. And I remember the police chief at the time asked that question, and he said, if you have a problem with cops, if you have a problem with the officers that are patrolling your community and this and the third, become an officer, join the department. Essentially he was saying, be the solution. And so there is a lot of truth to that. Another thing that I want to bring up, and so I haven't served in law enforcement. I've never been a law enforcement officer, but I am a former journalist who has covered law enforcement. So I've been to a lot of crime scenes, covered a lot of homicides, and have talked to a lot of officers. And so while knowing your rights is important, I guess this is where I get on my soapbox, if you will. Knowing your rights is highly, highly important, but I've seen encounters be made or broken based on the person's attitude. And so I know instances where, like, for example, like Del said, any amount of marijuana can get you arrested in North Carolina, but that's up to the officer's discretion. And a lot of that discretion is based on your attitude. I mean, not everybody is a yes sir, no sir type of person, but just being respectful of the situation can really make the difference. I've been in instances, just from personal experience, I'll admit I'm a little bit of a speeder, and I've been pulled over, and my attitude towards the officer, or lack thereof, can make the difference between a ticket and a warning. And I've had both happen. I've been pulled over for speeding, and I'm not someone like, I know I'm speeding, and I'm just like, I'm speeding. That's why you pulled me over. It is what it is. And because I have a professional attitude, I'm upfront and honest with the officer. I've been in instances where I've just gotten a warning. Just, hey, slow down next time. Have a nice day. I've been in situations where I've gotten a ticket, even by being nice. So it is really up to the officer's discretion. But again, how the attitude makes a whole lot of difference. Being, even if you're being arrested, even if you're being detained, it's just your attitude and just your demeanor, and just realizing that at the end of the day, the officer is just doing their job. That makes a whole lot, because at the end of the day, the officer wants to go home safe. You want to go home safe. Nobody wants to end up on the news. So we did get some answers to your question, Del. KG said through concerted community policing. Miles says, I just think seeing us more in these roles matters, much like seeing more doctors and engineers. We need to see more of us in these positions. Moreover, there's a lot of mistrust for lots of different reasons. And then somebody else answered, and I lost his comment. KG says, youth will see officers, in parentheses, quote unquote, and not po-po, etc. And I think that goes back to his earlier point regarding community policing and people seeing officers as people and not just somebody with a badge and a gun. Let's see, I think this is Richard. He says, going to schools, doing community events, displaying a positive light to inspire youth/young adults, showing police officers are relatable or from certain neighborhoods. KG, again, with the community policing, builds relationships between the community and those officers. Yolanda says recruitment efforts, visit high schools like the Army does. Side note, the Marines tried to recruit the hell out of me in high school. They almost got me. Yeah, they were very aggressive. Anyways, Yolanda says benefits, pay, positive, continue and increase positive community interactions. Miles says, I get it. There's a lot of room for professional discretion and personal judgment because there's so many varied situations. However, I think there could be more trust if we as citizens know more what to expect on a consistent basis. So, Miles, if you can elaborate on that a little bit more, are you referring to forums like this in terms of sort of the baseline regarding what people should know when they interact with a law enforcement officer, or are you referring to something else? So we'll take a moment and wait for Miles.
I feel like if he's answering that question, yes, we could have came on here and said, yes, you should do this, this, and this. But like you said, you want to be more personal, relatable, because I'm fine with talking to people. I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm not just going to just say, yeah, you should do this, you should do this. There's no other way no other thing you should do. I'm just completely going to give you options on what I would expect and what I would do. In a sense, does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think another thing that people should understand that and Miles responded, he said, sure, this is a really good start. So like events like this. So let's go back to the traffic stop. And so it's already a nervous situation for the motorist being pulled over, but at the same time realize that it's a nervous interaction for the officer too. And like, I know I'm a former journalist, but I hate when reporters say routine traffic stop. As someone who's covered law enforcement, I can tell you there's no such thing as a routine traffic stop. Anything can happen. So a law enforcement encounter, be it a traffic stop, be it you're entering a call at somebody's house, stopping somebody on the street, is a nervous situation for everyone. And so I think the key here is for everyone to be level-headed, be calm, understand the other person's perspective, so that you go home, or if you're arrested, you go to jail, get bailed out, and go home. The officer goes home, and it doesn't become a big mess. So,
So let me just say something as well.
okay, go ahead.
So me being a black officer, and just to be honest, once I take that uniform off and I'm driving my personal car, I get pulled over, I get the same anxiety, same nervous feeling as you guys do. Because even when I worked with my previous department and the department I work with now, yeah, I'm one of the few black people that work there, but everybody does not know me. So I'm treated just like everybody else. And then when I'm in the uniform, I got treated just like everybody in the uniform. So yeah, we're nervous just as much as you guys when we get pulled over.
I agree. I'm just as nervous as when I get pulled over as well. You know,
I start sweating and get high almost, to tell you the truth.
I mean, when I see blue lights behind me, I'm like, oh snap.
Yeah, and you understand that the way departments operate, like there's usually like different shifts, and so there's different shifts in different districts. So, for example, I live in Durham, and I know that the Durham Police Department has a few hundred officers. Not every officer is going to know each other. So, and I don't know if say like Officer Dell gets pulled over, I don't know if the officer runs his plates and they see that he's law enforcement. I don't know if it shows up in CAD. I mean, if it shows up in the system or not. It doesn't. See, there you go. There you go. There you go. So, especially for minority officers, and you'll hear this from multiple minority officers. Like he said, they take off the uniform and they're just like you. They have the same thoughts, the same physical reactions that you do when you get pulled over. And so at the end of the day, we're all human. And I think, here I am getting on my soapbox again. If we just keep that in mind, I think that will, nothing's going to be perfect, but I think that would alleviate a lot of situations if we just recognize that, hey, at the end of the day, we're all human. The officer has a job to do, and we all just want to go home. So, seeing no other questions, and again, this is the last chance for you guys to ask questions. And just to let you guys know, we are going to have this recording on our website, triangleiotas.org. And if you scroll down the homepage and you see the section on time to build, this recording will be there. And just to do a shameless plug for a moment. So this program is part of the Triangle Iotas overall initiative called Time to Build. And so we came up with this after the deaths of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd last year, with the idea to educate and to enhance communities of color. And so that communities sort of better understand how things work. And this effort is also to garner community input, to educate others on a variety of topics. Last year, we did a 5-part series on educating people about the value of their vote, and to also initiate projects that aim to enhance Black communities across the Triangle. And so this law enforcement series is part of this program, and we're going to have more of these throughout 2021. So before we close out, just wanted to open the floor to both of you guys to see if there's anything else that you guys would like to say in closing.
I appreciate everybody coming out, everybody asking questions. Like we said, we want more questions. We don't want it just to be straight reading from either a document or a book. We want to actually be able to interact and answer questions and try to get you guys knowledge that you guys are asking for and actually need. So if there's anything else that you guys really wanted to talk about in the next session, even though we have certain topics we're talking about, just write a little question or a note in the chat or write it down, and we kind of address it either next time or
Okay. And then also, if you guys have a topic that you want us to get into, go to triangleiotas.org. And there is, if you click on the upper left-hand corner, you can scroll down and there is a option that says contact Triangle Iotas. And just let us know what topic you want us to explore. I get the emails, so and we'll just go from there. So I want to thank everyone for coming out and asking your questions, and I'm glad that this was more of a conversation versus a do this, do this, do this. I'd like to thank Officer Dan, Officer Dell for taking time to walk us through these various aspects. Context like this is very, very important. And so I'm greatly appreciative of you guys taking the time. And then also for, I guess, the Greeks in the room, if you will, these two gentlemen are new members of our fraternity in our chapter. And the one thing I tasked them with doing during the process is to come up with a community idea. And so this is the first episode of their community service idea. So this is pretty awesome. And I definitely want to publicly thank you guys for coming up with this, for executing this. And I definitely look forward to having more of these conversations throughout the year. So you two guys don't go anywhere, but I will end this recording. And again, thank you everyone. Stay safe. Wear your mask. Wear your mask, wash your hands, stay 6 feet, because you don't want a repeat of 2020. I certainly don't want a repeat of 2020. And just stay safe, and we will get through this pandemic and everything else. And looking forward to seeing you during our next conversation. And let me make sure. Because again, there's like a 10-second delay between the Zoom and the Facebook. And we are clear. Okay.
It's still recording, but I got you.
Yeah, like we're recording, but you know, I'll just